is The Angry Octopus, your source for all things Red Wings. Here are your hosts, Aaron Habel and Aiden Wolf.
Got a tale of two teams. However, the better option has come out on top over the past week. We've had a win against Anaheim, 6-3. A loss against Buffalo that nobody wants to talk about whatsoever. Drubbing of the New York Rangers in New York, which New York's starting to win at home, but still, I don't know. And then Seattle Kraken, which is actually a more impressive win than I think a lot of people realize. Seattle's actually a decent team this year. How are you summing up the past week, Aaron?
Oh, I would sum it up as we're seeing what this team is capable of. You know, I know last time we had spoken, you tend to drift a little bit towards the negative once in a while, and you said something like they're a bubble team. This is not going to be a bubble team if they listen to their coach. And I know the coach is under fire a bit from some of the fans because he's pretty rough and tumble when the Wings disappoint him. But I think that's what this team needs. Remember, there's a lot of youth on this team now, and they need direction. There are also people on this team that have played for a while, and they're well paid, and they can get a little too comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Just look at that game. You said no one wants to talk about the Sabres game. One little preview is they probably lost that game because they got too comfortable. Well, this coach is there to wake them up, and sometimes it takes after the game to do so.
I think it's one of those things that it's a reminder that you can lose any game in the NHL. All the teams are technically good and can be good on a specific night. Like, the amount of talent on Buffalo is actually sickening. Tage Thompson on any other team is a superstar, like an absolute superstar. And Buffalo's one of those teams, man, that when they decide they're going to show up and they're like, hey, wait, we're playing hockey, they can really hammer you down. Now, Anaheim, this is a little bit of revenge. Did John Gibson get to play that game? Or was that a Talbot one?
That's what we were talking about. You said you would like to see him play that game. And I was like, well, I'm fine with Talbot being in there. I'm kind of leaning towards Talbot this season so far. But, Gibson's been great. No, they started Gibson, but he was taking a lot of shots to the head. And the puck would come in and hit him. And it was almost like uppercuts or something, because after the second really hard one, he ended up leaving the game. And they brought Talbot in. But, after the game, they were able to say that Gibson was evaluated and he's just fine. It's just one of those things he got shook up a little bit.
Yeah, and with the new protocols, which, by the way, are 100% necessary, you got to make sure that you're not ending guys' careers just because you want them to have a good game in Anaheim, right? And a little bit of salve for the wound losing to Anaheim last time. So this is actually a pretty decent outcome, 6-3. Going into the game against Buffalo, you're talking about them getting really comfortable and starting to get a little too confident in their ease of games. Do you feel like they went in there thinking this was an easy W?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. All I know is they get out to the lead and they can't sustain it. And that's what no one understands.
Yeah, it's not an easy league to play in. Like that's something that I think a lot of people forget when you're playing San Jose, when you're playing the Buffaloes, and especially fans. Like, you will see fans show up for a game and you're like, all right, it's San Jose. And then you see it's tied 2-2 going into the third. This was on the other end of things, though. Detroit was up 4-1. And what did you see as being the big breakdown for the team? Like, what was the defensive breakdowns that ended this game at 5-4?
I think it's just a mindset. I think they really do believe in themselves. And I think even when Buffalo had scored a couple, they're like, we got this, And it wasn't like they were playing horribly, but there wasn't a sense of urgency to lock the game down, and really exert their power over them. I mean, we can tell by what we've seen all season, because we're about at the quarter point, 25% of the way in or so. I mean, the Wings are the better team, right? They should win the game. But there was this, lackadaisical attitude, I feel like. And that's why the coach, as the fans would say, had a meltdown, because this is not a game they should have lost. You know, he talked about Traverse City and the practices and talking about how important it was that they managed their game well. You know, it's that mindset of you have responsibilities, stick to them, stick to the plan. And, you know, McClellan fully believes in this team, believes that if they listen to him, that they're going to win a lot of those games. Obviously, you know, you look around the league, Montreal has now slipped behind the wings a bit. Colorado is still doing very well, but any team can lose on any given night. But how are you losing? Maybe you just say, hey, they got a couple of easy goals for some reason. We had, you know, the goaltender fell, they didn't make a call, what have you. You can blame situations, but this was all on the team.
Yeah, and it's one of those things about this time of year. This is usually when the quality starts to ratchet up, right? Like you talk about at the beginning of the season where a lot of these young teams tend to break out the gate really hard, and they're doing really well because you've got young legs versus some guys that maybe took a couple extra weekends off in the summer because they know what they're veterans of the league, and they'll get into shape in the first 10 or 15. We're good. So you do see a lot of these young teams really break out and really kind of grind it down and get some early points. But this is the point in the year where teams start to wake up, and some of those veteran players who did take that time off are now getting into game shape. And it's the games that you'll notice they're getting a little closer, like the 2-1 result against New York, who is waking up, who is actually showing that they can compete. And I think that Buffalo game was kind of evidence of that. It was evidence of Buffalo deciding, wait a second, we don't have to take this. We can push back. And I don't think Detroit was ready for it. That was a game, watching that was painful to watch. I've been in that position far too many times as a fan, and I hate those games. They're absolutely demoralizing. And Detroit didn't get demoralized because they walk into New York and pretty sweet 2-1 game. Now, did you watch this game?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, the thing that we're going to hear the most, or we have heard the most about this game, are just the uniforms. Because when you have that lovely red, that brilliant blue, when they're all doing their scrum, it makes for just something aesthetically pleasing. I don't know how else to say it. Some people were saying it looked like a bomb pop exploded. But it was what we want to see. You know, I know there's a lot of nitpicking about should Appleton have put it in the net, you know, at the buzzer, et cetera. But, you know, this is what hockey players do. They want to needle each other a bit. When they're out there, they're playing to win, and they don't want to just win. They want to beat you. They want you to remember that. They want you to remember that they're better than you. So this kind of stuff doesn't bother me. I mean, otherwise, Marchand, what's Marchand doing out there? What's Bertuzzi doing out there? What you got to do is you got to get under the skin of your opponent a bit. That's part of their game.
Yeah, and you're noticing a lot of these teams, the original six, and there's a little bit of that rivalry starting to leak back in because New York and Detroit are both decent teams this year. New York struggled a bit while Detroit's had a bit of a better hand in the first few. But you're going to see some of these, like, especially when they're packed so close together there, you're going to see a little bit more anger and anxiety in these games, which is cool to see, especially a tight 2-1 game like that at this time of the season. I think this is just going to show well for Detroit going forward. We'll talk about them being first in the Atlantic in a second. Now, Seattle. This is a team that is frustratingly good this year after a miserable performance last year. And I think they're catching people unaware with their game. And I believe they had one of the top scorers in the league just about a week ago, which is blowing everybody away. What did you see in the Seattle game that kind of cemented them in the top spot of the Atlantic?
Well, personally, I think it's their defense. Their defense is showing up. They're really good at knowing how to make the most of what they have. They're getting good traffic when there are shots being taken, so they're deflecting a lot of shots. They just, overall, it seems like they have a very competent defense. They try to make the most of their opportunities on offense, so those don't come as often. So I would say it's their defense first, but, you know, that's what wins games, right?
Yeah, and seeing them play the way they are with the schedule they've had so far, they haven't had one of the easier schedules, and with it condensed like it is this year because of the Olympics, you're really showing which teams have it this year, and it's kind of cool to see. But it's also interesting to watch how things have been unfolding in the rest of the division. Now, have you been watching some of the division stuff happening? Obviously, you've got Detroit at the top, 12-7-1, taking out the Boston Bruins for first place, which I don't think I was going to say. And you did mention Montreal earlier. Now, Montreal has been absolutely hemorrhaging injuries over the past, I would say, 2 weeks or so. Again, though, that's part of the game. Everyone goes through it. Is this a new era of the Atlantic Division? Because it's starting to look that way when you look down and see teams like Florida rather struggling as well with the injury bug. Toronto and even Tampa kind of sliding a little bit. Is this the youth movement, with the exception of Boston, that is, really showing up?
Yeah, I mean, the league changes, right? Just usually it doesn't change for quite a while. It's just we've gotten so used to the way things were. When you go back to our first episode talking about what we expected, we're not seeing what we thought would happen. Are we at all? I mean, I think we talked a bit about Ottawa, probably improving. We talked a bit about Montreal improving. Montreal, we could just see. We just knew that. There are levels to this. I mean, Ottawa has just been putting in the time, working on it. But Montreal just has, I'm talking about their management. I'm talking about the players they have. They have something special over there. So I'm expecting they're going to be at the top. It doesn't matter what they're doing right now. I expect them to be at the top later in the season. Now, as for Detroit, I think that's the biggest surprise because everybody's got it in their head that Detroit cannot make the playoffs and that they're going to get squeezed out again because look what the other teams are. You have Florida. Is Florida just going to let them go by? Tampa Bay, right? They've struggled against Tampa Bay historically. So what I'm telling you is this team believes in itself, and I think there's no better thing to look at than after Larkin got his 600th point with that empty net goal. You can see that picture he took with Raymond and DeBrincat. There's this look on his face that just says, I'm right where I want to be.
Yeah. It's funny, too, because with all this talk about the change of the guard and, Boston is shocking everybody. A good reminder is counting Buffalo out, no offense to Buffalo, but come on. There's only a 5-point difference between the first and the 7th spot in the Atlantic. Meaning, this is all very tenuous, and yes, we're at a quarter point of the year, basically. But 5 points can shift over 1 week. And we've been seeing that with Detroit kind of up and down in the standings. You see a team like Toronto super struggling. You see a team like Florida super struggling. These could be all points that really matter in the end. All the points matter when you get to 82 games, obviously. But when you look back and you see a really rough start for a team, this is stuff that sewers the season for some teams, right? This is, I guess, just Boston's a great example last year where they just never could get it going and they kind of gave up at one point. So I'm going to be curious to see the wild card as that starts to flesh out over the next, I would say 2 months, because a lot of people are saying January is the cutoff for the trade deadline this year. Not necessarily the cutoff for the actual trade deadline, but teams, because of the Olympic break, are going to be evaluating earlier this year and either throwing in the towel or really deciding to make a push for it because of that Olympic break, meaning we only have a couple months at best before we're starting to see the league flush out for what the playoffs is going to be. Is that kind of scary this year? Especially if you're a fan of a team like Toronto, is that this is the wrong year for that to happen?
Well, for them it will be, but for the Detroit Red Wings, they have McClellan. I'm going to keep saying it. McClellan is the guy. They need that coach because he's going to be in their face. He's going to be in their ear. And they're not going to be able to get away from him. If he feels like they're squandering the points, he's going to be upset because it's not just about the winning. He has a job. He was hired by Steve Yzerman to lead this team to the playoffs for the first time. Yzerman was asked for years, get a new coach, get a better coach. There's this guy, there's that guy. He would never do it because he didn't believe that the team was ready. The team is ready now. They have McClellan. Yzerman believes in him, and I think we know why, because he's going to hold that team accountable, and he's not going to let them forget. Because look at it. You brought it up last week. It was a great point. These guys, they're on the road. They're not on the road. They see their family. They don't see them. And, it's hard to manage all of that. That's the coach's job, is to remind them, hey, you're here. Get out there and do your job. And we're seeing that pay off, because after that terrible loss to the Sabres, look how they've responded. They've gotten 2 wins in a row, and they were good wins. I know they were kind of close on paper at times, but really, when you look at it, the Wings played a really good game. And we've also seen the growth of players. Nate Danielson looks phenomenal. Emmett's waking back up, Emmett Finney. And then you also have, amazingly, Axel Sandin Pellikka taking over as the defenseman on the point for the power play unit, the first one.
Yeah. So if you look at the league standings wide, just a bit of a, I don't know, kind of makes you feel good seeing Detroit at 6. That's 6th overall in the whole league. There's a team emerging right now that's actually kind of scary. Have you been watching the standings at all?
I do watch the standings, and one of my favorite things to do is to go to the league.
Yeah.
I know, the division's important, but I like to get a taste overall of what's going on in the league. And when you situate it like that, then you can see where Detroit is. It's pretty awesome. But then you can see where other teams are. Because if you just look division by division, you don't really get that picture that you do on the league side.
No, there's a couple very surprising things when you look at the league. First of all, Colorado Avalanche are terrifying this year. And it's not just wins and losses that make them terrifying. Their differential for goals is plus 31. The next closest team is the Carolina Hurricanes at plus 16. And then if you go beyond Carolina, and there seems to be this line in the sand, the New Jersey Devils are a plus 5 at third. There's something about Colorado this year that is terrifying. I'm going to be very curious to see if Colorado and Dallas face off again this year, because that's going to be a bloodbath as far as I'm concerned. But also, there's a couple other surprises in the top 10.
Well, before you get past Colorado, I'm big on Colorado. I've been saying it. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. Nathan McKinnon is a force. And I think anybody saying that he's not as good as I'm saying, they're lying to themselves. This guy is amazing. They also have Cale Makar on the team. He's arguably number 1 or number 2 defenseman, or tied for number 1 in the league with Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
And then you look at the rest of the team, they're pretty solid all around. That's a team that is only looking better and better. And it seems like everybody's getting better on that team. So yeah, that point differential might go up even more.
That is one of the rare occasions where a team trades somebody like Mikko Rantanen and gets better. Like that just doesn't happen.
Thought?
Yeah, that's not a normal thing to happen. That's kind of freakish, actually. Detroit or New Jersey Devils sitting in third. One of the Sheldon Keefe, ex bench boss of the Toronto Maple Leafs, is a great coach, and he knows how to get the most out of his offense. And they are a very good team this year. It looks like they've figured out their goaltending. They're another team that I think is going to be another dynasty style team over the next, if they can be run properly. The only thing I'm worried about with Sheldon Keefe is when the games get tough, he gets out coached pretty easily. He's a pretty young coach, and we saw him get out coached by what's his name with Tampa, like multiple years in a row. So I'm curious about that. And number 5 in the league, the one I called the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks this year. I am excited, and I've actually kind of started watching more Anaheim games since Toronto has been an absolute waste of time. This is a fun team to watch. I don't know how you feel about Anaheim, but they've always been on my radar. It's been a sad little stretch for the past almost 20 years, but seeing this team kind of get revived after all of the crap they've had to go through with all of the rough years, I'm here for that. That's going to be a great time. And Detroit is tied with them for basically 5th and 6th spot. So.
Well, what I love about the Ducks is they're a team that's just fun to watch. So even if you're not a fan, if you don't know anything about Anaheim, start watching their games. they're going to pay off for you. They're so much fun, and they've got an energy to them. Even when they were losing to the Wings, they never gave up.
No.
They want to win those games, and I think it's going to pay off for them.
They need to change their jerseys, man. That it's just not working. I don't know who. Anyways. And the last real big surprise, other than Chicago, which I don't think is much of a surprise, the Pittsburgh Penguins are sitting 8th in the league. I don't think even the Pittsburgh Penguins thought they could do that. Like, Kyle Dubas is a bit of a pompous guy. I'm sure he's had it earmarked the whole time he's been with Pittsburgh. But the beginning of this year, weren't we all talking about where Sidney Crosby was going to get traded to? Wasn't that like
this
the
idea
big
that he
conversation?
might? But
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't know if it happens unless they really need to do a reboot. And right now, they're not needing to do that, apparently. I think this is going to be like that heavyweight boxer who's got this long, storied career. He's still looking solid. One day, though, it's all going to fall apart.
Well,
that's going to be the Penguins. They're going to fall apart at some point. It's just not this year.
Malkin and Crosby are like similar in age. Malkin, I believe, is planning on retiring after this year, or it's kind of on his mind. Crosby obviously probably wants to go for one more. I don't know if either of them want to leave the Pittsburgh Penguins, though. It's especially seen outcomes like this. Obviously, we are only a quarter of the way through the year, but they're sitting 8th in the league, man. That's with Tristan Jarry in net to boot. Like, that shouldn't be happening with Tristan Jarry in net. All these teams like Toronto, who if they have bad goaltending, their year is gone. And then you have a team like Pittsburgh with Tristan Jarry and they're 8th in the league. I feel somehow cheated by that.
Well, keep in mind, you have Sidney Crosby and you have Evgeny Malkin. Those guys want to stay with Pittsburgh. I guarantee you that. A lot of these players that are long-time, big-time players, they don't leave their teams because they want to go somewhere else usually. What happens is the team says goodbye, like Chicago did with Taves. So if that happened, that would be one thing. I do wonder, though, in the back of my mind, I think, well, Sidney Crosby and Mario Lemieux. I don't know that they want to ever break up. So I guess when I really think about this, I don't think that they would ever get rid of Sidney Crosby.
Speaking of Crosby, very, very unique company he's in. As of 2 days ago, it was only him and Gretzky that were the only two teenagers to ever score a hat trick in a season. The only two. There is now another person within that group. Very, very, like, think about that. A teenager scoring a hat trick in a game. Another player has done it. And I'm seeing Macklin Celebrini kind of overtaking Bedard as like the next big superstar of this league. Bedard was supposed to be the one that was, he was the next Crosby. He was the next like big difference maker. I'm starting to see Macklin Celebrini as being that guy. He's on fire on a very bad team. Like, Chicago's doing really, really well. And Bedard obviously doing really well. Celebrini's scary right now. So he has 30 points in 20 games, which is absolutely insane for a teenager. And the Sidney Crosby did it in 06-07, and Gretzky did it in 1980-81. That's the only 3 times a teenager has scored a hat trick in the NHL. That is a player that is worth tanking for, if you ask me.
Well, let's put it this way. If we're lucky, and we might be, we'll have a rivalry like we do with Sidney Crosby and Ovechkin. Well, it might be Celebrini and Bedard.
Yeah.
That might be the next rivalry. We'll see it. I mean, if you've watched Bedard, if you've watched him just practicing and stuff, this guy's got all the skill in the world.
Yep.
Macklin Celebrini, though, there's something about his attitude. He's got a drive, and it's much like what I see with McKinnon. It's just like this motor, and they're just going to go out and make stuff happen. They just go out and do it. And so, they're just different personalities. But I think you're going to see both of them at the upper parts of the league.
We can all agree that Ovechkin won that, right? No, are you serious? Even after breaking the Gretzky goal mark?
Yeah, he broke the goal mark. Good for him. Ovechkin's maybe one of the greatest scorers, if not the greatest goal scorer of all time. But if you look at the overall package,
Yeah, I'll give
Sidney
you that.
Crosby has him beat, in my opinion. If I were forming a team back then and I had a choice of both guys, I would take Crosby every time. There's no doubt.
More hardware for Crosby for sure. Like, I'll give him that. It's really hard to look beyond that goal, breaking the goal record from Gretzky, because nobody thought that was going to happen. Remember,
It's
this
just
is
flash, though. I mean, there's so
I
much
don't
more
know,
to the
man.
sport of hockey here.
the Gretzky scored 92 goals in a season, right? Like, in order to like beat that record, you had to do something otherworldly. And I feel like Ovechkin did that. But speaking of also these rivalries, a couple years back, it was, well, more than a couple. It was supposed to be Matthews versus Laine. That was like the big one that was getting hyped up. And that was mostly the chirping by Laine doing it. That one's become very disappointing, though. Actually, on both ends of that puck, because Matthews isn't exactly showing off exactly how great he is lately. I don't know. Some people are saying it's an injury. Okay, so
Well, and you're forgetting McDavid and McKinnon.
McDavid and McKinnon. Nah, I don't know if that one's ever going to. Yes, McKinnon is good
On paper,
and-
it's not as much. You know, you're not going to feel
Yeah.
it the way we did Crosby and Ovechkin when they would see each other on the ice. It's not exactly like that, but on
No.
paper, it's there.
somewhat. I would give McDavid that every single time. Like, he's ridiculous. Like, the point production from McDavid. McKinnon is a great leader. I'll give him that. Like,
Who's going to have the
full-
hardware at the end of their playing years?
Man, I really wish it was McDavid. That dude.
It's not going to be. I'm
No,
telling you
it's-
right now. Watch it. McKinnon is the guy that's going to have the trophies. He's going to have the hardware.
Colorado's been rather snake bit as well, though. Like, as much as you say that, Colorado has won definitely since the last time Edmonton has won, but they're kind of feeling just as snake bit. Like, they don't seem to be able to get over that hump. I mean, Rantanen kind of shoved it in their face last year with the Dallas win. And obviously his point production was ridiculous up until they ended up getting knocked out. I don't know, McDavid, though. McDavid's hard to ignore in that battle. And I think that's going to be one of those like hindsight things where you're going to have to look back on it and really see. And you're right. Hardware is going to tell the story 100%.
I'm just
Let's see
telling
if-
you, if it comes down to hardware, it's McKinnon who's going to have it, not
You
McDavid.
think- oh, man, McDavid, the Oilers could break out for that. They could end up with that 4-year dynasty.
Surprised
I don't
me.
know. You know what? My fear for Edmonton is that they turn into the Washington Capitals, where they're so close. They smell it every year and they get knocked out by the same team every single year. And then they win it once. And that's we won. We finally did it. But everyone's ready to retire already. I'm
Well, yeah, I
afraid
get
that-
it with Washington, but
Yeah.
Edmonton, they haven't won it.
No, but I feel like I'm worried that that's going to happen to Edmonton, where they're going to come so close, they're going to win it once and then just fade into obscurity. Kind of like Washington's doing, kind of, but anyway.
It's difficult to get to the final series, the finals. I just don't know. Edmonton's been there twice.
Yeah, but Edmonton also has a bit of a rivalry starting up with Florida, which is weird to say, but the two teams go at each other pretty well. I think that there is a world where Edmonton's walked away with at least one of those if things went just a little bit different. A great example is Hyman getting hurt last year. If Hyman was in that series, I don't think we would be talking about repeat champion Florida Panthers. Hyman was like, dude got over 50 goals a couple years in a row, and he's knocked. Oh man, that was painful to watch.
I don't know.
But-
Florida heavyweight team right there.
Absolutely. Looking forward. You've got Islanders tomorrow, Saturday Columbus, Monday New Jersey, and next Wednesday Nashville. Again, this is that condensed schedule where that's like 4 games and 6 nights. That's a lot of hockey to be playing. Do you think that this is better set up for a young team than it is more of a veteran team that has slightly older legs but a little bit smarter approach?
Oh, I think it's just going to come down to the coaching.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. I think the Wings, if they can keep things consistent, it'll be good for them. The unfortunate thing for the Wings is when they start to slip, they slip. And you see them lose 2-3 games in a row. So hopefully that isn't happening again. It does feel like McClellan's really driving it home. They need to have game management. They need to know their roles. I feel like they're going to have another good stretch here. But I do want to talk a bit about the rumors that are going around, because there are rumors going around that Talbot is desired by multiple teams. And I can't believe people are giving time to this, but I have to give time to it because everyone's talking about it. I'm going to tell you, I don't see Talbot going anywhere.
Yeah. The way I see it, and this is an interesting perspective because both sides are kind of right. One is you have an asset that isn't going to fulfill his full destiny with Detroit. He's an older goaltender. He's probably going to have maybe 2 years left in him. And then he's probably going to fade and he's going to get a little worse. He's going to turn into the true backup, and might as well get something good for him now and rely on an actual backup right now. That I'm not saying that's the right thing to say. I'm just saying that I can see that angle of things.
Devil's advocate.
Yeah. But the other side of this that I don't think a lot of people are looking at is Steve Yzerman has been searching for goaltenders and the right fit of goaltenders for the Detroit Red Wings for so bloody long. May I remind you that it was only a couple years back where you had 4 goaltenders signed going into a season. He has been on the search. He recognizes that goaltending, you need that to win. It can't be the only thing you have, but you also can't leak like a sieve. And I don't think he's willing to give that up right now. I don't knowing how he's built this team and how much emphasis he put into getting a bloody goaltender or goaltenders. I don't know, man. I don't think Talbot's going. Who
comes
anywhere.
in if they let's say they trade him and they get something for him? Who's going to step into his spot? Because the goaltenders they have in the AHL, Sebastian Cossa, whoever, the top 2 guys are injured, and they don't feel Kossa's ready yet. I mean, he's performing well, right? He's bounced back. He's doing well. In fact, the Griffins, where he plays, they're doing phenomenal. They're on a tear. But this isn't really the time to take a chance with a young goaltender. These goaltenders need more time to kind of ripen than all the other players. And that's why you've seen Finney come up, you've seen Danielson come up, but you're not seeing these goaltenders come up.
Yeah, and you want to see these goaltenders come up almost in an emergency situation to prove themselves where nothing's on the line for them. They don't have to come up and be the backup. They just have to come up and give the team a chance. And I think there's a big difference on the mental health of a goaltender. It's so easy to wreck them. You put too much on them too early, and there's the rest of their career gone. Seen it so many times. But when they have to, and a goaltender's been injured, and you have to bring one up and just give us 5 games, man. Just give us 5 games where you give us a chance. That's where I think you're going to see a lot more. I think for Detroit, though, if they do shop Talbot, it's going to be a situation where they get something less reliable back as a backup goaltender. Somebody that's going to sit back and play less games behind John Gibson. And there is validity to that, right? If you're willing to allow John Gibson to play more games, but that's also kind of stupid too. John Gibson isn't young either. Like, who's going to give him a 60-game workload? Dude's old, man. Like, he's 36.
Forget the age. Look, Talbot can play multiple games in a row and still look solid.
Yeah.
So, and I know Gibson, what is he, 32 or something?
36, I think.
Oh, 36. Look, these guys, they're doing fine. And I would say, if you look over their past 6 years, who's been a better tandem in net for the Wings than the 2 they have right now?
Nothing. They have struggled on goaltending basically since 2017. They've struggled with goaltending. And again, you've seen Steve Yzerman specifically try to figure that out. And he was playing a numbers game at one point, like I said, bringing in as many as he could and see who, gladiator style, see who's standing by the end of it.
But that's a sign of weakness, right? That's not a sign of strength. That was a sign of weakness. And they went specifically after Gibson.
Yeah.
So I think much like, Talbot looks even better to me now than he did last year. I think they're expecting Gibson to really settle in. I've already seen him looking better than the way he started. So I think they're believing in their goaltending group and they need to keep them. And if they're going to trade anybody, they need to trade one of the older guys that's been on the team a long time. I've said it before. I really feel like Comfer's been working his butt off out there. I don't know about Kopp. And it's nothing against him. We don't know what's going on with all these players, but, I keep thinking about the youth. And Detroit, it wouldn't be a bad thing, I don't think, to try bringing up a guy again. I mean, they have Amadeus Lombardi just sitting out there in the AHL. I think he could come up. I don't know why he can't do it if Finney is.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's every player reacts to that spotlight a little differently. I think we're going to find... because you've got a few teams kind of in the mix looking at like how we can improve. Toronto's one of them. Florida's even looking to bolster because they've been hit by the injury bug. It seems like there's nothing happening injury wise. And this is my prognostication. This is my like guess for what's going to happen is teams are going to go on Christmas break. And there's going to be this time down where people can evaluate, and they're also going to be looking forward towards the Olympic break, the trade deadline. And I think teams are going to come out of the Christmas break knowing what they want to do and what they want to get back. And I think you're going to see the floodgates open literally right after January 1st. I think you're going to see the floodgates completely open, and you're going to see teams start to make a lot of moves. Right now, it just seems to be everybody's like jammed up. We know what we need, but we can't pay that for it. Like there's so many teams that are just like struggling so badly right now. But also you kind of want to give your team a little bit of time to stretch as well. So I think you'll see a lot of these players starting to move around in January. I don't know if it's going to happen before then though. So it usually really doesn't. This time
and maybe that's also part of it is maybe the Wings are looking at bringing another guy up. But they're going to wait till an injury happens.
Yeah. And
then they'll say, well, we need him now. So then they can move. I think Lombardi might be the guy. Mazur, I would say him, but he seems to have this injury bug. So I know there are some complaints about Lombardi for some reason. They're saying he's a little undersized, but need I remind anybody? Martin St. Louis, Pavel Datsyuk.
Yeah.
I mean, there are guys that are smaller guys, or even DeBrincat. DeBrincat's a pretty small guy. Would you not want him on your first line? So I don't think size matters. It's the talent.
I think also you're looking at a GM who realizes you're winning and you're at the top of your division and there's no hurry to make any changes. There's no hurry to like making a goaltender swap when you're first in your division is insane. Like that's a level of insanity that you should be fired. We're on a heater, guys. Our goaltenders are getting wins. Let's trade one of them. How dumb are you? Like, it's such a bad idea.
It's the overthinking, I think, happens amongst the fans. But I do think that the players, when it comes to them, I think Yzerman is looking at the stats. He's looking at the production. And I think there are certain guys that just aren't really getting it done. And why not plug that hole?
Yeah,
and there are guys that are going to grow into their roles, and this team could get even better. So I think what you're saying about injuries, about trades, this is maybe what Yzerman will wait on is a need and say, well, we got this guy. He's earned the spot. We can move him up now and try him out.
Well, and we're just getting into that part of the season where you're starting to see the ebbs and flows of wins and losses, where teams like they'll hit a skid for a couple games and they'll come back up. And as long as your flow is better than your ebb, you're probably going to be set up for the season. And so far, it looks like Detroit's got a decent ebb to flow ratio. So I think going forward, you're not going to see much change unless something really bad happens. And I mean, we're almost in December, man. Like it's hard to believe that we're almost in December and this team is chugging along. But I would say coming up this week, New Jersey is going to be the fun game to watch. That's one that I am definitely going to have on. I even think it's our Amazon game this week, which I'm all for. Yeah, because Jersey is just a fun team to watch. They're very, very talented, and they do have a few injuries as well. But that high flying Sheldon Keefe style is going to be worth it to see. So, anyways. That's it from me, unless you got anything else, Aaron.
That's
All right,
it, man.
Have yourself a great week. We'll see you next week, guys.
Have a good one.
Thanks for listening. You know you can find us on YouTube as well. Till next time.